Hello. Today we're going to be covering priority management. Priority management is one of those things that I think for most entrepreneurs, if implemented consistently, would change everything in their business. But yet one of the things I think is hardest to upkeep in the way we do things as well. It's all about understanding how to connect the long-term goal to your everyday life and really be able to get to the point where you're aware of what's up to come up, and so you're not just putting out fires and reacting to things, but you're being way more proactive in the way you spend your time. So priority management is different than time management in the sense it's not about physically putting time in your day timer, although it can connect to that. It's a lot more just about understanding the long-term goal and how it connects to where you are today. To give you a bit of an idea of what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to give you some tools, things that really help you understand kind of the right things to go after when it comes to priority management, and then we're actually going to get you to plan out your long-term goals for the next year and figure out every day what you should be doing to hit those goals. So that's our plan today. So I figure I'd give you a bit of a story. And priority management for me and kind of how it came to be and how it's actually impacted my life and my business. For about 2 years in a row, I had grown a business to about 1.3 million, and for about 2 years in a row, I had stuck at about 1.3 million. That's a good number to be at, but at the same time, we really wanted to grow to that next level. And the reason we couldn't do it is because I was spending about 80 hours a week in that business. I had no physical time, sometimes 100 hours a week. I really had no physical time left to build the business to that next level. So I went through priority management. And I learned a ton about myself. I learned a ton about consistency and keeping up, my habits of what I need to do to be successful. And what ended up happening as a result is after 8 months of doing this, it became a habit. And suddenly my business went from about 1.3 million the year prior to about 1.7 million. But here's the kicker. I worked only 40 hours a week to do it. So I worked half the amount of time and brought my business to that next level. And then I suddenly realized I'm able to make time for the right stuff. All of a sudden I don't have to spend 80 hours a week working, and I can spend my time on more effective things, being more effective with those things to get my business to that next level. So that's what I really want to show you guys today and give you a chance to really understand some of these basic concepts, but at the same time keep consistency to them. And that's where best mindset really grows, a big part of priority management as well. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to look at is a couple things revolving around priority management itself. And I think the first thing to understand is what is priority management? Because I think a lot of us get out there and we set goals and we say, okay, priority management has something to do with time or doing the right things or making a list and things like that. The right exact definition is the process of aligning your focus to hit the goal. So I'll write that in. The process of aligning your focus to hit the goal. So ultimately what that means is the things that you do on a daily basis are focused on hitting the goal. And if the goal isn't in mind every single day, you'll often miss. And that is the true definition of priority management, understanding that every day you're doing things that are going to impact the goal. Okay? And what we're going to do together is we're going to look at kind of what that can even look like as far as using your time effectively. So I find that when it comes to the goal, there's certain things that we spend our time doing and not doing. And there's 4 quadrants that kind of breaks down to. So if you have tasks, they're usually either urgent and important, not urgent and important, urgent but not important, or not urgent and not important at all. And I'll give you some examples of each of these so you kind of know where you fit probably right now and kind of where you might want to shift to. So if you spend a lot of time here, which a lot of us do, in urgent but in very important tasks, that's things like meeting clients, getting things done, setting up appointments, but it's all within the week and it's all go, 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 go. And if I don't do it, I won't hit my goals. Absolutely, a lot of us spend a lot of time in this, urgent items that are very important. And we feel like that's a good thing because we're getting lots done. But at the same time, we're so nearsighted, we have no kind of vision about where we're heading, we miss on a lot of stuff and we do a lot of stuff repetitively for no exact reason. So where we want to shift a lot of our time is here. Not urgent, but very important. And a really good example of that is this. When I used to set up quotes for clients, I would meet with them every single week on weekends, usually Saturdays and Sundays, to go and estimate their houses. Now, I could have set up just for that week my weekend. So I could have set up between Monday and Friday, set up my weekend to go do quotes, which a lot of us will do. But what I did instead is I set up that whole weekend, but I also set up the weekend after. So that way I was always 1 week ahead of myself. And from there forward, I still worked just as hard as every other manager in the area. But instead of having to on Friday night to set up my last couple appointments for Saturday, I was setting them up for the next Saturday, which means clients had more time for me. They were more open to setting up that appointment and I wasn't rushing anyone. That's a good example of not urgent. It's next week, but it's still very important task items. And it gives me the flexibility to do the right thing and spend less time running around, with like a chicken with my head cut off. So that's a really good example of not urgent but very important. We also spend some time here. Urgent, but not really that important. A good example of that is maybe an email comes in, and it's it's an important email to do, but it sidetracks us from doing what we're on task to do at the time. So it might be someone that you have to get back to, but it's not that important right now. It's not, it feels urgent because emails obviously feel that way, but it's really not that important to hit the goal right now. And then there's this, not urgent and not important. That is going on Facebook to maybe blog with your business and all of a sudden get caught up in cat videos. If you're finding this happens, this is the not urgent, not important area. That could be cut out as much as possible. But my ultimate goal for a lot of us is to take a lot of this urgent and important tasks and turn them into not urgent and important. So to spend more time in this category. And that's what priority management will do for all of us. So one of the first things I'm going to get us to do is to set some goals. But before we do that, I want to go over something called SMART goals, because that's what that's going to do for us. It's going to enable us to make sure we're setting goals that are aligned properly and make sure we're on task and basically doing the right thing to make sure we make impact in our business. So I'm going to go over what the SMART goals actually are, and then from there we're going to jump into some goal setting. So SMART looks like this. So it's an acronym, SMART. And the first part of SMART is all about specific. So you may have seen this in some goal setting in the past. It's absolutely crucial to everything we do when we set a goal. So specifically, what is your goal? The more detail you can have in your goal, the better. And a good example is something like this. I would like to get more leads. That's not very specific. But I would like to get 10 leads from people in the financial sector in the next 2 weeks by doing network marketing. Okay, so that's very specific. Much more specific than I'd like to get leads or more leads. So make sure you have numbers and specific things you can actually track and other people can tell if you're going to hit or miss or get close on your goal. Next thing is measurable. It has to be measurable. So if it's, that you're going to get 10 leads, then you can tell if you hit 9, you missed by 1. If you got 12 or 11, then you beat it by 1 or 2. But if you didn't have a number, then you wouldn't be able to measure and see how close you are. If you miss by 1 every single week and you never even know that, you'll miss your overall goal. If you're ahead every other week, you never know that, you won't realize the potential you could be setting up your business for. So that's measurable. Attainable, that's where people often set goals that are too high or things that are almost emotional than they are logical. So people might say, okay, in the next 6 months, I'm going to book $100,000. And maybe 5 months in, they've booked $20,000. So now they've got 70 grand or 80 grand to book in the next month. It's not very attainable to set that goal anymore because you've realized now, in 5 months it took me to book 20 grand. How am I going to do it in the last month, book 80? So then all you want to do is you want to set the goal to be just a little higher. You know what, on average every month I seem to be booking about 5 grand. Okay, so then what I'd like to do is book about 6 this next month and just move the arrow up a little bit. And that way you used to have something to shoot for that's attainable. So that's attainable for goals. Relevant. So this comes into squirrel syndrome, I call it. So when people get distracted on things that are exciting or shiny objects, but they're not relevant to the goal. Ultimately, whatever is relevant to the goal is worth setting a short-term goal on. Whatever is kind of a distraction is not. Think about it for yourself. How many times have you spent maybe a month on a project or something you went after that made you $0? Those are usually things that are not relevant. Relevancy is all about hitting that year-end goal. Make sure it leads to that. And last thing is timed. We need a time frame of some sort in order for our business to basically have a bit of fire under it to make sure that we're moving forward. As people, we're naturally procrastinators. We need time to keep us moving forward. If we go over time, okay, we need to understand why that happened and we can actually measure and reflect and make sure we adjust. If we got it before we finished the timeline, we need to just understand why that happened. And now we have a bit of a measure that we can use as well in our timeline. So timed is the last thing when it comes to SMART. And there's one other thing that's not in the SMART goal access. When you're setting a goal that is so crucial that if you do not do this, you will miss no matter what you do. And it's your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And it needs to be connected to your heart. It's so important that it gets connected to your heart. I'll give you an example of what that can even look like. For my business, personally, I want to build this business because I want to get it to the point where my wife doesn't have to work anymore. I want her to be able to raise her kids and be at home doing it. And she wants that too. And so for us, that is our why. That's why I get up in the morning. I want to hit these goals, not because I want to make $1 million. Yes, that'd be nice. But my why is important because it makes me feel like I'm achieving something for my family and for the people that are close to me. So make sure when you set up your why, which we're going to do today, it's something from the heart and it really connects with you and keeps you driven through all of this. Okay, So the reason I went through that first is because the next exercise I want us to actually go through is to set up our actual goals. So this is what it's going to look like. You can use this on a blank piece of paper. You can use this however you like. You can use totally your own format. But I want us to set up a long-term goal. I want us to break that down into some medium-term goals. And then ultimately, at the end of this video, you're going to have short-term goals for every single week that you want to go do. So the first thing I'll get us to do is just focus on the long-term piece. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of 1 to 3 goals that you can do in your business that are long-term. So something, maybe a volume goal, maybe a quality goal, maybe a profit goal, maybe a people type goal, maybe it's something to do with leadership or something to do with the amount of people you want to hire. But 3 long-term goals that are 6 months to a year away. No more than a year away though. Once you set that goal, set up a due date for it, and then this hit-miss column is just a check mark at the end of the year to see whether you hit it or missed it. Once you've got this, your long-term goal, 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 if you need to, I want you to start writing your why. I want you to spend a lot of time writing why is that so important to you? What would happen if you actually hit that in a year from now? So I want you to pause the video, I want you to write your long-term goals, and then I want you to write your why. And this should take you about 10, maybe even 20 minutes, to especially writing your why and really understanding what you want to get to and why you want to get there. Alright, so pause the video and go ahead. All right, so I trust you've got your long-term goals now, you've got a due date on them, and you've got a really set why that you've written down that really connects with you. Once you've got that, we're going to start to show you how to break all this down properly. So that can look something like this. So these are actually my goals for my business, and give you some dates and things that I'm actually up to. So for Best Mindset, I have a goal of 200 members. And the first thing I did for my medium-term goals, these are all the things that are kind of proximal or things that are coming up on certain dates. So by December 31st, I wanted to have 75 members. By May 1st, I wanted to have 150 members or 155 members. I wrote some notes as well just to keep me on track and make sure I knew what I was doing. Now that's the number stuff. And in Excel, that's easy to quickly break down your goals, especially if they're financial goals, and break down the numbers of them. The other thing is you got to think about, okay, well, how is that going to happen? How am I going to get to those numbers? Because otherwise they're just numbers. So then I had to start to think outside of the box a bit. Okay, well, I have to establish myself in maybe some groups that I can network off of. I have to have 10 different strategies to pull in people so I can get about an average of 10 to 20 people per month, so two people per strategy. I want to work with universities and establish a mentorship program. And I want to set up 4 different networking nights that I'm hosting to really bring in business for these 200 people. So those are all some of my strategies and the things I'm going to do to get those 200 people. Now I could write I'm going to get 155 members, but if I don't have a strategy to get there, there's no point in writing anything. If you have a financial goal, you might want to think about what are all the things you need to do to hit that financial goal. How many clients do you need to meet with? Do you need to get certified in anything? Do you need education in anything? Do you need to hire staffing to get there? What are all the things and the factors and the variables that need to happen along the way to get you to those numbers? So it's more about the tasks and the milestones and the groups and the networking events and basically everything you're going to do to get to these numbers. The numbers need to be in there as well, but you need to think of all the stuff that goes along the way. And if you notice, all I did is I just looked at one of them at a time. I looked at just my long-term one of them, and I broke down all the things that have to happen for that one long-term goal. And then I looked at the next one, and I said, okay, well, I want ownership in what I'm doing. So I have to break even at a certain point. I want our bonuses pooled properly. I want to make sure we're profitable at a certain point, or a certain amount by a certain date. So it's very interesting when you start to look at all the different variables involved, all the things you got to focus on, and even have some due dates on those, to have some milestones. Once you've done that, look at one of your medium-term goals and break it down further. So if you have to have 75 members, basically by a certain date, I want to average about 20 new members per month. From there, I want to do about 1 major speaking event per month. I want to network with our students and have 25% of our flow coming in from that. So there's a bunch of little things that break down just from one of these things, and then I can really start to see details on my weekly and monthly basis what I want to be hitting. If I know I need 1 major speaking event every single week, that should be in my calendar every single week. And if I don't have it in my calendar for a week or 2, I know that in one of those weeks I'm going to have to do 2 or 3 speaking engagements, because overall that's what I need to hit on my averages. And then once you've got each of these broken down, you can start to say, okay, that's it for the 75. What's next for establishing myself in 5 monthly groups? What am I going to have to do there? You can start to see what I wrote down. Have 10 groups established or 10 things I'm going to pull from. You can start to see some of the different stuff I want to do. I'd look at one at a time though. That's the key. If I look at all these at once and start to break down all my short-term stuff, I'll get confused. But if I just look at one at a time, think about the things I need to do on a monthly, weekly basis, I can start to formulate a plan that'll happen every single week. And now I know this is what I gotta do. This is what I have to do every week or every month to get my business to that next level. And it keeps it very simple for me. I gotta get in 20 members. I'm gonna do one speaking engagement per week. I'm gonna network with our current students. 25% of them are gonna come from there. 10 recruits a month from something called Business Mastery that we do with Make Your Mark. 5 recruits per month from networking. 5 recruits per month from external sources. Speak with Colin more about what I've already been doing with universities and schools, because that connects with that one. 1 networking night done. So I want to do 1 networking night per week, and plan networking nights overall. So I have to also have some time to plan it as well. So it's not just about doing these events, there's also time put in to plan them. And that breaks down all this stuff to make sure it gets done properly. And now all I have to do is start plotting it into my calendar. And then from there, I can start to say, okay, every single week, what do I want to actually do? Start plotting into my calendar. And then from there, that's what you do. And then it comes more down to time management. You start looking at, okay, when am I doing my calling? Here's my speaking engagement. Okay, here's my networking events that I'm going to. Here's my team meetings, my planning time. Here's my plan to plan time, which is so important. If you don't have time in every week to plan, you'll miss on a lot of the stuff that you want to do. So that's the basics of priority management. You're getting basically your goals broken all the way down so that you know every single week what you want to put in your calendar. And then all of a sudden your calendar will become full of only things that are relevant to the long-term goal. And you know why that you're doing the things that you're doing. The key to doing this is keeping this up and keeping this in your calendar every single week to keep revising it and making sure you're on track. So yeah, you know what, maybe if I didn't do that speaking engagement that week, I would find the next week over and find a place to put another speaking engagement and keep myself on pace and on task. I always plan out about 2 to 3 weeks in advance as well, and that keeps me making sure that at the end of the day, I'm not scrambling to get stuff done. I've booked my appointments in far in advance, and then I just execute on what I've got. Every single week after I've had a week, I plan to plan, and I review how that week went, and I make sure my next week's totally set up and ready to go. In doing that, I'm able to be way more proactive versus reactive. And I'm consistently doing this until it becomes a habit, and that's the key behind priority management. So that's it. So I trust this has helped you. What I'd like you to do at the end of this video is start to break down your medium and goals right down to short term, and then start plugging them into your calendar and create a consistent calendar that you can consistently use on a regular basis. Other than that, I'll see you at your next best mindset session.